beg on the streets, you beggar," my son yelled as I tried to sit down for family dinner. They say time heals all wounds, but some wounds don't fade, my child. They live inside you, breathing quietly, hurting softly, until your last breath. It's been years since that night, but his words still echo inside my heart like a curse I can't escape. Go beg on the streets, you beggar. I never imagined the lips that once called me Ma with love could someday throw those words at me with hatred. My name doesn't matter anymore. I'm just a mother, a woman who built her entire world around one child. After my husband died, it was only me and my son. He was my reason to wake up every morning, my reason to keep breathing when everything around me was falling apart. I remember the small house we lived in, broken walls, a leaky roof, and a floor that turned cold every winter night. But inside, there was warmth, the warmth of love, of laughter, of my little boy's giggles when I made him his favorite lentil soup. Those were poor days, yes, but not empty ones. Life wasn't kind to me, but I never complained. I worked from dawn till night, cleaning other people's houses, washing their clothes, cooking meals that I could never afford for myself. My hands cracked in winter. My feet swelled from walking long distances. But every time I saw my son eating with a smile, I felt rich. He was my pride, my dream, my everything. When he slept, I used to sit beside him, watching his small chest rise and fall with each breath. I'd whisper to myself, one day he'll grow up, and I'll finally rest. That dream kept me alive through every hungry night, every insult, every tear I swallowed in silence. Years passed. He studied hard, and I did everything I could to keep him in school. Sometimes I'd skip my own meals to buy him books. Sometimes I'd lie to my employers just to attend his school meetings. When he won a prize, I'd clap the loudest, though my palms were bleeding from the day's work. He used to look at me and say, "Ma, one day I'll earn so much that you'll never have to work again." And I believed him, because a mother's heart, it believes everything her child says, even when the world calls it foolish. When he finally got a job in the city, I packed his clothes neatly, kissed his forehead, and tried to hide my tears. I told him, "Don't forget your home, Beta. Don't forget your mother." He smiled, touched my feet, and said, "How could I ever, Ma?" That moment felt like all my sacrifices had found meaning. But I didn't know. That was the last time he'd look at me with love. At first, he called every few days, telling me about his office, his new friends, his new life. I used to listen with pride, my heart full of joy just hearing his voice. Then his calls became shorter. Then they stopped. Weeks turned into months. I told myself he must be busy. A mother always finds excuses for her child, even when her heart knows the truth. Every evening, I'd sit by the window, watching the road outside. Each time a bus stopped, my heart raced. Maybe he's coming. Maybe I'll see his face again. But the road stayed empty, and my hope slowly began to fade. Still, I never stopped praying for him, even when loneliness became my only companion. I whispered his name every night before sleeping, because that's what mothers do. They keep loving, even when love stops coming back. Time is a strange thing. It never stops for anyone, not for a mother waiting by the door, not for the tears that fall without sound. Days turned into months, and my son's voice became a memory I could barely remember. Sometimes I would dial his number just to hear it ring, then hang up before he could answer. I was afraid that I might disturb him, that I might sound needy. That's what mothers do. They fear becoming a burden, even to the ones they gave their lives for. My home had grown silent. The walls that once echoed with his laughter now carried only the soft hum of loneliness. I still cooked for two out of habit, but every night one plate would stay untouched, the food going cold, the air heavy. My son had moved into a bigger city, a brighter world, one where I no longer seemed to belong. Occasionally, he sent money through the bank. No letters, no calls, just numbers on a screen. But a mother doesn't crave money. She craves her child's voice. She longs to hear, "Mother, are you okay?" Then one day, after almost a year of silence, my phone rang. It was him. For a moment, I froze. My hands trembled. My eyes filled with tears before I could even speak. When I heard him say, "Mother," it felt like a piece of my soul had returned. He said he wanted me to come over for dinner. I didn't ask why. I didn't need a reason. All I heard was that he wanted to see me. And for a mother, that's enough to light up an entire world. That night, I couldn't sleep. I took out my old sari, the one I wore on his graduation day. It was faded and a little torn, but I ironed it carefully, smoothing every wrinkle with love. I prepared his favorite dessert, semolina pudding, just the way he liked it when he was a child. When I looked into the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Lines marked my face. Time had stolen my youth, but I smiled anyway. I whispered to myself, "You're still his mother. Don't let him see how much life has tired you." The next evening, I arrived at his house. It was grand, tall gates, shining lights, cars parked neatly outside. For a moment, I just stood there, clutching the box of sweets in my hands, afraid to ring the bell. Would he be happy to see me? Would he hug me the way he used to? Or would it just be polite conversation, formal smiles, and empty words? The door opened. He stood there, well-dressed, confident, everything I ever dreamed he'd become. For a moment, all my pain disappeared. He was still my little boy in my eyes. "Mother," he said softly, "please come in." Inside, the air smelled of perfume and polished floors. Everything sparkled, the furniture, the lights, the life he had built. And then I saw her, his wife, beautiful, elegant, and with eyes that looked at me as if I didn't belong. I smiled politely and said, "I brought some sweets for you both." She took them without a word, her expression stiff, her lips pressed thin. Still, I sat down, quietly, content just to be near my son. That alone was enough for me. As dinner began, I tried to join in their conversation, but my words felt small in their world. She corrected me when I mispronounced an English word. He laughed awkwardly, pretending not to notice the discomfort in the room. I could feel her judging my old clothes, my simple manners, the roughness in my hands. But I stayed quiet because a mother never wants to embarrass her child, not even when her heart aches with shame. All I wanted that night was one peaceful meal together. Just one. Dinner was served beautifully. Plates that shone like glass, food arranged as if painted by an artist. I sat at the edge of the table, trying not to take too much space. The aroma of the food filled the room, but I couldn't taste a thing. I was too busy watching my son, memorizing his smile, his voice, his every gesture. He looked happy, a man who had built a new life, a better life. And for a mother, that's everything. But as I sat there, listening to them talk about promotions, vacations, and dinner parties, I realized I didn't understand half the things they said. Their world was so far from mine, glittering, fast, and loud. And I was just a shadow from his past. Still, I smiled. I nodded when they spoke. I laughed when they laughed, even when I didn't understand the joke. Because love doesn't need understanding. It just needs presence. When dinner ended, I tried to help with the dishes. But before I could stand, his wife said sharply, "Oh no, it's fine. We have help for that." Her tone wasn't rude, but it wasn't kind either. It carried a wall, a reminder of where I stood. I sat back down quietly, feeling my heart tighten. My son didn't say a word. He just looked at his phone, pretending not to notice. I wanted to tell him that all I ever dreamed of was eating dinner beside him, hearing him say, "Mother, this is delicious," the same way he did when he was a little boy. But instead, I sat there in silence, holding back the tears that wanted to fall. Then, as if the universe wanted to test me, she spoke again. "You know," his wife said, turning to him, "people will talk if they see her coming here often. It doesn't look good." Her words sliced through me like a knife. But what broke me wasn't her voice. It was his silence. My son didn't defend me. He didn't say a single word. I looked at him, hoping he'd say something, anything. But he just lowered his eyes and said softly, "She's right, Mother. Maybe it's better if you don't come too often." That moment, something inside me cracked. All the years of love, of sacrifice, of waiting, collapsed like a fragile wall. I stood up slowly, forcing a smile. "I understand," I whispered. "I just wanted to see you, that's all." I picked up my bag, ready to leave. But as I turned, my weak knees gave in, and I almost stumbled. Before I could steady myself, I heard his wife's irritated voice. "Please, if you can't manage yourself, at least don't embarrass us." And then My son, my own son, shouted words I never thought I'd hear. Go beg on the streets, you beggar. Everything went silent. The air froze. My heart stopped. I looked at him, hoping it was a joke, a misunderstanding. But his eyes were cold, as if I were no one. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Pain like that doesn't bring tears. It brings silence. I turned away and walked out, each step heavier than the last. The dessert I had brought slipped from my hand, falling onto the floor, sweetness spilling into the cracks, just like my heart. That night, I walked back home alone, the streetlights blurring through my tears. Every step echoed with the same words. Go beg on the streets, you beggar. That night when I reached home, the street was quiet. Only the sound of the wind filled the emptiness around me. I unlocked the door to my small house, the same house where his first cries once echoed, where his laughter once lived. But now it was only silence that welcomed me. I placed my bag on the chair, sat down slowly, and let my body sink under the weight of everything I felt. I had been insulted before by life, by poverty, by people who looked down on me, but never by my own child. Those words, go beg on the streets, you beggar, they kept ringing in my head, louder than my heartbeat. I looked at my hands, the same hands that once held him when he was sick, that worked through nights to buy his books, that stitched his uniform when it tore. How could these same hands now be seen as filthy, unworthy? I thought of the nights I had gone hungry so he could eat more, the days I walked barefoot under the burning sun to earn just enough for his school fees. Every memory came back, like small flames burning through my heart. I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't. A mother never can, even when her child breaks her completely. Her heart still whispers, he's mine. Maybe one day he'll come back. That night, I cried quietly, not out of anger, but out of loss, because I realized my son wasn't lost to the world. He was lost to me. Days passed. I stopped waiting for his call. I stopped sitting by the window. The road that once brought hope now only brought dust and strangers. People in the neighborhood started noticing. I was quieter than usual. Some asked, is your son doing well in the city? And I would smile softly and say, yes, he's doing very well. They didn't need to know the truth. A mother always protects her child's image, even from the world's pity. Slowly, I began to live again, not happily, but peacefully. I found work at a small school, cleaning classrooms in the mornings. The children there reminded me of my son, their innocent laughter, their messy handwriting, their little fights. When they called me Auntie, it filled a small part of the emptiness in my heart. I started saving small amounts of money, not because I needed it, but because old habits never die. I cooked for one, washed my own clothes, and watered the plants outside every evening. Life had become simple again, but this time I didn't expect anything in return. Sometimes, late at night, I would take out his childhood photos, a little boy with bright eyes and an innocent smile, standing beside me on his first day of school. I would run my fingers over the photo and whisper, "Where did that little boy go?" And then, as if answering myself, I'd say softly, "He's still here, just lost somewhere behind success." Years went by, seasons changed, faces changed, but my life stayed the same, quiet, simple, and alone. I had grown older now. My hair had turned white, and my hands shook when I held a cup of tea. Sometimes, when I looked into the mirror, I could hardly recognize the woman I had become. But there was peace in my eyes, the kind that only comes when you stop expecting and start accepting. I no longer waited for his calls. I no longer dreamt of footsteps outside my door. But still, every night before I slept, I whispered a prayer for him, not for him to return, but for him to find kindness in his heart. Kindness I once saw when he was a little boy, holding my hand. Then one afternoon, as I was leaving the school, a car stopped near me. The window rolled down, and there he was. For a moment, my heart forgot how to beat. He looked older, tired, heavier, not just in his face, but in his soul. He stepped out slowly, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years, guilt. "Mother," he said, his voice trembling. I stood there quietly, unsure if I was dreaming. He came closer and fell to his knees, holding my hands. His voice broke as he whispered, "I'm sorry. I was blinded by pride. I forgot what love feels like. I forgot you." Tears filled my eyes, not because I was angry, but because I had waited years to hear that one word, "Mother." I gently touched his face. "My son," I said softly, "the world teaches you to climb high, but it never teaches you how to bend with love." He cried like a child, his head resting in my lap, just like he did when he was small. I didn't remind him of the words he once said. I didn't ask why it took him so long, because a mother doesn't count wounds. She just holds her child and forgives. We sat there in silence for a long time. He told me how he lost his job, how his wife left, how he had no one to turn to. Life had shown him everything he once ignored: pain, loss, loneliness. And for the first time, he said, "Mother, I finally understand what you gave up for me." I smiled faintly and said, "Love doesn't demand understanding, my son. It just gives." He wanted me to come live with him again, but I refused gently. "I'm fine where I am," I said. "You don't need to prove your love by taking me home. Just keep me in your heart. That's enough." He looked down, ashamed, but I lifted his chin and smiled. "You see, forgiveness isn't something we give when someone deserves it," I said softly. "It's something we give to free ourselves." That evening, as he drove away, I stood by the gate, watching his car disappear into the distance, the same way I once watched him leave years ago. Only this time, there was no pain, just peace, because I knew, even if the world saw me as a beggar, I had given him something money could never buy. a love that never stopped giving, a heart that never stopped forgiving. A mother's heart doesn't break when her child hurts her. It breaks when her child forgets who he used to be. And yet, no matter how deep the wound, a mother's love always finds a way to forgive.